over the years, we have really shrunk our management team and really kind of tried to put more effort and resources into middle management and even frontline supervisor role leader positions for not only our staff, but people supported.
We have discussions at all the different departments hold their meetings, and we will ask the staff directly, hey, do you have a story to share on how you welcome, nurtured, or helped to train one of your new staff?
We actually had an employee who was leaving after about 28 years. And we recognized them at our general staff meeting.
There wasn't a dry eye in the room.
And we had another employee who had actually already put in their notice. And that employee was at that meeting and then rescinded their notice after that meeting because they said, I want to work at a company like this.
Welcome to IDD Leader, where human services leaders grow their impact, lead with heart, and build the workplaces our field deserves. I'm your host, Nate Beers. Let's dive in. Sometimes you just need a good dose of encouragement. Well, in today's conversation with leaders from Friendship out of North Dakota, you are going to get that encouragement. They share some outstanding stories of how they've embedded a culture that listens to their staff, makes the changes that are needed, and really what they've seen over the past couple years with their first 90-day turnover dropping significantly. It's super encouraging. Not to mention, you definitely want to pay attention to this story about what unexpected thing happened at a retirement party. I think you're going to get a ton of value out of this episode. It's part 1 of 2. I'll post the second one with the very next episode that comes out. And without further ado, enjoy today's conversation. Well, can each of you introduce yourselves, share your role at Friendship, and then tell me the moment when you knew you were in the right field?
Right. Well, hi, Nate. Thank you for having us. We're so excited to share our Friendship story today. I'm Dory, the president of Friendship, and I have been at Friendship 28 years, and what a blessing, my 28 years. I started as just a temporary position outside of college, and fast forward to all these years, you know, it's been such a blessing. And I can tell you that there's been a lot of moments that really was an aha for me. But really, when you take a deep look into really getting to know somebody and becoming friends and really helping them, there's been so many moments in my life that I know that I am in the right calling and this is what I was meant to do. I grew up on a farm and my parents instilled hard work and helping everyone around us. So I think that this has really been a blessing for me to be able to come in and just really do what my heart calls me to do. And so I'm just grateful for the opportunity to be with Friendship all these years later.
Awesome.
Right. I'm Steve Orrin, and glad to be here. Nice to meet you, Nate. I've been here for 35 years. I started late 80s looking for a job. I couldn't find, you're always, just looking for something that pays a decent wage and you can kind of make a living. And so I've stumbled on Friendship, through an ad in the paper. And I went in and interviewed and hadn't really had much experience with people with disabilities. Started working in a group home as a direct care support provider. Just worked all different positions over the last 35 years. And within the last 10, I moved into the administrative offices and started doing recruiting and now HR with the company. I suppose my kind of aha moment was, just the relationships that I developed when I first started working here. I worked with one person. I was a one-on-one, which was kind of unusual, but, you just develop that relationship with that person and it it becomes more important than the money that you're making or the things that you're doing. It ended up being a relationship that you just developed and wanted to maintain and make sure that person had a great life. And then those relationships just continued throughout the 35 years. There's, so many people I've met and really enjoyed being a part of their lives.
Hi, Nate. Thank you for letting us join this time with you. I'm Lori Campbell. I am the director of the Residential Services Program, and I have been with Friendship for almost 20 years now. But I have been in the service field of developmental disabilities for probably most of my life. My family, actually, my mother and then her mother have all been in the service field. So I
Oh,
think it was just kind of a natural career choice for me. I went through several agencies and then I came to Friendship about 20 years ago in a part time position. And then when I realized the difference a friendship can make, and I have been with many providers, that's when I think I knew. And I went right away when they offered me a full time, and then I'm managing of a group home. I did that, and then now I'm in the director position.
hmm.
So I've seen many fields in this area, and friendship just truly embodied the wholeness of the person and caring about them in all different areas. So I knew I was in the right place, and that's why I think I've remained for the last 20 years.
That's awesome. It's so cool to hear that each of you um, kind of started more on the front lines. And I hear that a lot, actually. That seems to be a common thread, and that something about it just grips people, and then they a lot of times end up sticking with it. Um, so, in case listeners aren't familiar with Friendship, can you just give a brief overview of the services you provide, maybe the size or scope, and then also even where you're located?
Right. So Friendship is a developmental disability service provider in North Dakota. We exist really on the eastern side of the state. We are in Fargo, West Fargo, Grafton, Park River, and we provide 22 unique different services. So, from all kinds of residential options to employment options, we do so much within both of our communities of Grafton, Park River, and Fargo. We have roughly about 170 people we support throughout our organizations and all of our license. We have traditional ICF services. We have uh, independent living situations, residential habilitation services, people living in their own apartments, and then, like I said again, all kinds of new different employment opportunities for all kinds of people that have unique different services and abilities. And so we are pretty big in Fargo, and then I think we're still the fifth biggest employer in Grafton, and so we're pretty dominant in Grafton, and the community is very supportive of the rural community as well as our metro community here in Fargo.
Wow. Okay. Well, I know in a previous conversation, you had mentioned to me that you guys have been really intentional about employee recognition, that seemed to be kind of a big deal. Can you share a time when showing appreciation made a really meaningful difference for someone on the team?
Yeah, I can share. We Well, it was a different kind of recognition. It was a recognition for retirement. And so we actually had an employee who was leaving after about 28 years. And we recognize them at our general staff meeting. So twice a year we have a meeting where we bring all of our staff together and do training and other things. But we recognize this person for her years of service and her retirement. And it was a it was a great event. She was able to share stories, talk about the people that she'd work with. And we had another employee who had actually already put in their notice. And that employee was at that meeting and then rescinded their notice after that meeting
What?
because they said, I want to work at a company like this. So, I mean, we try to celebrate things for everybody. I mean, it doesn't matter what it is. People support it as well, but we try to make a celebration of things that happen. And it makes a difference.
I love that story. It's probably not quite a repeatable strategy. Like the next time you get someone's notice, you probably can't throw together a retirement party, but I still love it. I absolutely love that as what a testament to what they were seeing right in front of them there. Wow.
Dory, do you want to share about the 40th, maybe?
Yeah, the story that Steve said, I will also just add into that there wasn't a dry eye in the room, and there was probably 125 employees in that room, and I think the opportunity arose for us to celebrate at any time with anyone, and so I think we just carry that message out so often as much as we possibly can. Um, in addition to what Steve said, another recent example is Friendship just celebrated a milestone within the organization for an employee to reach 40 years, our first employee at 40 years. Now, it's an opportunity to celebrate not only with the organization, but that leader who has been with us in a role that is so valuable to the company. So we celebrated her hard work, her servant leadership, her dedication, and the company side as well. But when we got together and planned a little surprise party for her in the organization for the company, um, she was sharing with us over her 40 years. Um, Her children were born. She got married when she worked here. Her whole life of 40 years has been celebrated with us, and those milestones, personal and professional milestones, it again was just another exemplary example of really appreciation, gratitude, and really that longevity of knowledge for the people we support and our coworkers was so valuable. So another fun story is for sure of our 40-year celebration.
Wow, that's I love it. This is great. I hear a lot of longevity that if people, the ones that stick around, seem like they really stick around. Not, I mean, the three of you, but then also these other examples as well. Um, I think we'd also in a previous conversation talked a little bit about flipping the org chart upside down, and that's sort of the modality or the framework that you guys are using when it comes to your staff, and of course those being served would be at the top of that chart. Then, describe for me, what does that look like day to day, or how does that maybe change how staff experience support from leadership?
Well, I guess I'll speak. I mean, having that means that we're truly there to support the person in any way that we can. And it also means that the DSP, that direct care provider, is that next level, up, down, however you want to look at it. But they're the next level. And so we're here to support them to have a great experience in their work experience, and to, hopefully love their jobs and do what they really enjoy. And if they're happy in their jobs, then they're going to, I believe, take better care of the people that we support and help them to lead better lives. And so I think it's, all of that contributes to the person having, I think, the best possible experience, the people we support to have the best possible experience, best possible lives.
I think Steve said it perfectly. On a day-to-day basis, we see how our staff, and we always put the people supported first. I think great advocacy for them comes out of it and everything, knowing that they are at the top of that chart. And then they also know that we are there to support them, like Steve said. So if they have any questions, it's not like I'm going to my superior, I'm going to my person who's supporting me.
Years ago, when we flipped our organizational chart, it really led to our really values of servant leadership. And that's kind of like our organizational philosophy is really um, serving everybody above us to make sure that everybody has a voice, which includes our staff and people supported. On a day-to-day basis, one of our jobs as leaders is to really make sure that they have an avenue to talk to us. A suggestion might be so invaluable that day to really just make sure that we're there for them. Over the years, we have really shrunk our management team and really kind of tried to put more effort and resources into middle management and even frontline supervisor role leader positions for not only our staff but people supported. And so we really, as leaders across the company, we don't necessarily go by titles and positions. We say all employees are leaders, which from me up to the DSPs, everybody is valuable and people always have good ideas regardless of their position and title. So we are very transparent with our organizational chart.
That's really fascinating
Yeah.
about shrinking the chart. I mean, not sorry, not shrinking the chart, shrinking the top level of management. Were those, were those hard decisions to make at the time? I mean, did it seem kind of radical in the moment? I mean, you can always look back now, but how was that?
Yeah, when I started into the executive leadership team here at Friendship, after I worked my way down for several years, there was 9 of us. And today there's 4 of us. Of course, those decisions aren't easy. They can be scary, they can be emotional, but we really years ago made an intentional decision to really shrink it and put more resources elsewhere. And so at times we're a little stretched, but we also know our DSPs and our mid-level management are stretched, and so we're no different. But we not only look at leaders across the company, but we are very blessed to have mid-level leaders who are excellent, exemplary. And Lori is one of them, as one of our director of residential services. We are very blessed to have leaders who can make decisions that benefit the people we support in our company. So it took years to kind of flatten that management team, but we're very cohesive and happy we did it.
Wow. Yeah. So do you guys, as far as those mid-level managers, are there a lot of intentional choices going into developing people for that? Did you just sort of pray and it worked out really well that they just sort of landed there, or is there a strategy behind that?
Well, I think it comes from one of the culture beliefs that we have, hiring from within. And so when I look at our operational team, which is the next level up from our management, um, all of them, besides one leader, were hired from within. And so there was one meeting that we actually even added up the years of service, because even between me, Steve, and Lori, there's a lot of years. But the operational team all were hired from within with direct care experience, moving them
Yeah.
down the chain. And I will say that we didn't move them down. They moved themselves down with hard work, dedication, and the grit to get in and understand truly DD services. Um, they also understand that DD services can be hard, emotional, and not every day is good, right? But they learn the skills to be leaders, to move the organization forward for people supported. So intentionally, leaders like Lori, Steve, and even myself, we're blessed to have good mentors that were strategic and intentional on career passing and making sure that who's the next person up that can do with that leadership role. And so I believe it all comes from a culture that we want our employees to be successful.
What was that experience like for you, Lori, whenever you bumped up either from frontline to supervisor or from supervisor to, I don't know if the word's manager or director, but tell me about the one of those times when you had that transition. What did that support look like?
Sure. Um, I think Dory touched on it a little bit about the mentorship. And I think we do that even from a direct hire directly on. We would never just have them go in and perform the job. We always assign them a mentor. And then when I was in a supervisor position, my manager trained me on her duties. Like if I have to be gone, the care of the people come first, and I need you to know how to do these items. So that mentorship is there, and we're always building them and encouraging them also. So it's hard when you work in a small group, like I was in a group home, and you get close to those connections, and it's hard for them to go to maybe another department, but you also want them to succeed. And then you know that greatness that you've instilled in them, and they're going to carry that over to that new department. So I think through that area, and then the director, whose position I am in now, it was the same thing. It was a lot of mentorship and, hey, come in and do this with me. So if I'm gone, you can help fill in that role. And it's not about the role we're in, it's about everybody pitching in, and they have to have the skills to be able to do that. And it's not like I'm your manager. That's not your job to do that. It's no, I want you to know this job so that you can be there to help, so that that continuity is there for the people we support.
We also have a program in place, like an official program, where if you're interested in moving and advancing yourself, our director of education actually has a program put together. So you can take that and learn some of the skills that you're going to need to be a leader in a more formal process. And it also allows people to maybe self-identify, that wanting to strive for more, and to be able to, just take that class and see, is this for me? Is this something that I would really like to do?
Hmm. So, so if I'm hearing you right, it sounds like it's kind of you've built a formal structure around it, along with, I don't know if the word's organic, but it seems like the managers are trained to kind of pull people up into different parts of the responsibilities. And so, Lori, from what you were sharing, it's not like you promoted and then we're like, oh gosh, what did I get myself into? What's this going to entail? It sounds like you actually were given bite-sized pieces of that all along the way, so that you probably had a pretty realistic picture of what that was going to look like.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
That's cool. That's actually something I heard in another interview recently, where they they did the same thing. It's almost like giving people a chance to show what they're capable of, and then you can kind of see which talent rises to that to that role. Not that it's any more valuable. I mean, staying in a frontline position or staying in a frontline supervisor position is super valuable, but there is a different skill set needed, usually whenever there's a promotion. So, so that's neat that you guys have that going on kind of in a couple different ways. That seems like that's part of the recipe there at Friendship.
Yeah, we have a lot of really great staff who have been here many years. We have DSPs who have been here for 40 years.
Mm.
Are right below 40, 38, 39. They're all kind of rising up to where that, our first 40 person was at. But they've been here for many years, and they've stayed in that same role, and they just truly love their jobs. And those are people who we have, tried to cultivate over the years and say, hey, you should be a manager, you should be, something else. And they've just said, no, this is what I love to do. And
Yeah.
I don't want to do that. I just want to be a DSP.
Yeah. No, that's a wonderful thing, and it's good for people to know what's gonna make them happy and where they're gonna feel the most successful. And so, yeah, that's really neat. I think I saw somewhere that 2 of your DSPs were named North Dakota DSPs of the Year. I think that may have been last year. What did that recognition mean for them personally and for the whole team?
Yeah, well, every year, NDACP asks for nominations of DSPs across North Dakota. And so last year we had 2 winners selected. But this year we just announced that Friendship had 1 winner
Oh,
within Friendship for North Dakota. And so we just presented her and notified her and surprised her. So, Lori, tell us what that was, that moment, that day, the after conversation. Tell us about what that experience was for her and all of her coworkers.
I think we took her by surprise, for one thing. I think it was kept a secret for a reason. But we did it actually during DSP week, which was really cool. So the site that she worked in was hosting like a little get together celebration of DSP week. And they had some food and gatherings, and then senior management stopped by, which is Dory and Steve are part of senior management. And they stopped by and they were talking about the NDACP DSP of the year. And so they started out by acknowledging her that she was nominated. And the room was like full of cheers for her, the camaraderie or whatever. It was just amazing. She was so excited. And then Dory proceeded to say, well, actually, there was only 1 winner selected from Friendship. And actually, not only were you nominated, but you were the winner. And just tears of joy. And her coworkers came, and it was big group hugs going on. And she was just thrilled. And she's like, I just love my job. But then to be recognized also, for what you do on a daily basis was really meaningful to her.
mm.
It really touched her. It was really nice to see.
Wow, that's really heartwarming, and it's a fun way that you guys did that with the surprise element. So she did not even know she
Yeah.
was nominated prior to that day.
No, no.
Okay, wow. Um, I think also in one of your recent newsletters, I had seen that there was some kind of talk about you guys involving those being supported in the hiring and the evaluation process. Can you share a little bit more about that, or share a story of how that's impacted your culture?
Well, I think that's one of my biggest goals or, challenges that's put towards me being in HR is to make sure that the people supported are involved in every aspect. So they are in the interview. They decide who they want to hire. And then when they decide who they want to hire, they make that job offer. So they call with the manager, offer that employee the job. And then when training and stuff happens on site, that employee is there to assist with the training. We also have a person supported who comes into orientation class. So we do orientation every couple of weeks. He comes in. There's a couple of people actually who come in, and they tell what they want to see from that employee. And the biggest one that I hear every time I talk with one of the guys, what are you going to talk about tonight? And he's like, well, I'm going to let them know that they can't be on their cell phones. I don't like people on their cell phones when they're working with me. And so they help advance that, what the people really want from a DSP. What do they want to experience from them? And it also sets that tone right away with the employee
Yeah.
that the people supported are integral in this whole process, and they're going to be the ones who are involved. And so it's not only like in the hiring, then we look at employee evaluations. So we complete those once a year. It's required that every employee has a person supported that actually evaluates their progress over the last year. So
Wow.
that person supported works with the manager, gives their input. And so we have, forms for them to fill out just to make sure that everybody's doing what they're supposed to be doing. And then they document that as well. But they are, giving their input as to how that employee is doing for them. And then that's also shared with the employee during the actual review process, which is great because you can get that feedback not only from your peers or from your leaders, but also from your the people that you're supporting to know that you're doing a great job for them too.
That's cool. That's the first I've heard of that. I'm sure you're not the only organization in the country that's doing that, but that's the first I've heard of that. And I love how that takes it takes away some of the us them that can sometimes inadvertently be happening, you know, uh, between staff versus those being supported. It kind of sounds like it makes it more of just an us. Wow.
Yeah. I don't know if I answered your whole question because I
No,
felt
that was great. Were you going to say
okay.
something, Dory? You look like you're about to jump in.
Yeah, and I was gonna say, again, I think that comes from our culture and beliefs that people really are in charge of their own lives, and we want decisions made for us. Sometimes I think we may forget about those intimate moments that frontline employees or all of us have to work alongside people supported. Um, and really they should have a voice of who they get to work with in those especially those intimate moments, right?
Yeah.
Now, it's not perfect and sometimes, um it doesn't always happen exactly the way we want, but I think it's embedded into our culture and that is true from a frontline employee to all positions across the organization, whether it be, maintenance, finance, nursing, people do have a voice. I was just recently sitting in some interviews and the people we support around that interview table for that interview committee were treated no different. We're not given special treatment. They were treated just like everybody else around that table. And I came back from a long day of interviewing and I was just so impressed how they were just one of everybody else at the table, and so it was really refreshing to see that, they included her in everything, and that's just what I see often throughout the organization.
Wow. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, and we do an annual survey too for the people we support, for them and their guardians, and so they give their input on how, how things are going for them. That specific shot in time, just like we do for our employees once a year. We do a survey and then follow up on that to, to make changes that are relevant both to people supported and to our employees.
Yeah. No, that's wonderful. And has that led to tangible changes? The results of those surveys?
Yeah, there's some real changes that we've made as a result of the surveys. We found in some ways that people weren't staff weren't feeling as welcome when they first started working. So, there's cliques and stuff that happen naturally in all work environments. And so we kind of identified that from one of the surveys. And so we implemented a new program. We tried a lot of stuff with retention and even, with hiring and all of that, just to try to get employees in and to make sure that they stayed with us, because we found that if they stay a certain period of time, then we've got them basically. They'll develop those relationships and they'll stay. And so one of the initiatives kind of that we started, the action plan that we did following one of the surveys, was we wanted to put that on everybody who works with all of the new hires. So all of the staff that are currently working, we asked them to welcome and nurture and train all new employees to help contribute to the continuity and security for that person supported. And so we developed that initiative, and we worked really hard on that, just making sure that people understood that, sometimes if you're short in your department, it's maybe because you're not looking within. and you're maybe not being as welcome and open to accepting somebody new into your group, your family, to work there, and that makes people feel uncomfortable, and they might leave sooner than we would like them to. And so it actually did make a big impact for us. And so I mean, we're pretty excited. We actually saw movement in our numbers for retention. And I mean, those were some of the only real changes we made. And so I feel like it's pretty definite that it came from that initiative where we really, instead of us trying to fix the problem, we ask the employees to fix the problem and also let them know that they have responsibility and they need to be accountable as well for those new employees that we hire.
Can I dive into this just a little bit more to get a little deeper look at that, if that's all right?
Sure.
The kind of the two questions, and they're sort of separate, but that immediately that triggers in my mind is, if you don't mind sharing what those number differences are, would be one question, and if you do, that's okay. But the second one is, how did you roll that out? I mean, here's in my mind, I hear that, and I can so easily picture somebody coming in and saying like, "Come on, guys, we got to be more welcoming," and everyone's like, "All right, yeah, we kind of know we should be." But then, like, 6 weeks later, did that conversation stick? So I'm really curious, what did that look like to actually try to, I guess, shift the culture piece of it? And then what did that look like for the
Mhm.
data side of it?
Yeah, so we started with, we have lunch and learn sometimes. And so we brought in all the supervisors because we have a manager at each site, and then we have a supervisor that supervises each side of the week. So it's kind of each supervisor has their own team. And we brought the supervisors in and kind of gave that, you know, all that information to them and said, now we're going to hold you guys responsible as well. And you need to move this to your team, to your other employees, and let them know what they need to do. And we also did it. We brought it forth in one of our annual meetings, our general staff meetings. But our numbers, those. So if I look back, fiscal year 2023, our 90-day retention rate was a negative 19.2%. Okay. Our 90-day retention right now is at 32%. So we've moved that number almost 50% or over 50% in the last 2 years.
Wow.
And it follows track along with our 1 year. Our 1 year in 2023 was 21.2, and our 1 year currently is 42.5.
What's the 21 and the 45?
Oh,
Can you
a
define?
first year.
Is that how many people make
So
it
our,
to the first year? Is that what, can you just help play it out in case,
yeah,
I'm
yes. How many people make it to the first year there to their first
to
year
the
of
1 year
employment?
anniversary? So it went from,
Yes. Yeah.
I'm going to butcher your numbers. 20. Give me the numbers again one more time. 20.
It went from
Okay.
21.2% to 42.5% currently.
Wow. So that's a dramatic impact.
Yeah. Yeah, we had some big increases in our numbers over the last couple of years. And we put this in place in 2023. And so we do feel like it has had a direct impact on what's been happening.
Okay.
And we do continue it on, like we did that initial training, but like you said, how does it drop off, or does it drop off? And we actually added it to our staff meeting agenda. We have discussions at all the different departments hold their meetings, and we will ask the staff directly, hey, do you have a story to share on how you welcome, nurtured, or helped to train one of your new staff? And sometimes it ends up being the new staff themselves will share something that happened with them, or a coworker that did something to make them feel welcome. So it gets the conversation going, and it keeps it going because we have our staff meetings. Some go every week, some every 2 weeks, but it just keeps the conversation going.
Mm.
And I think the initiative was so important because it came from our frontline employees that intentionally we did not allow it to fall off, like a lot of things do in our industry. And so these are just a few of the initiatives, but from always having it be part of our strategic plan, conversations in the hallway, like Lori said, frontline staff meetings, to just making sure that we treat everybody how we all want to be treated by the golden rule. Specifically for my operational team, we meet every month. And one of the things that we did every month for 2023 is I required mid-management leaders to bring what they did that month to welcome, nurture, and train new employees. And so we collected evidence, even just on the surface of what we each did for that day, that month. And so after hundreds of things in the bucket, we just said, this is important. We have to continue it. And so it still is something that I hear down the hallway. Welcome. Hi, welcome to Friendship. We're so glad we have you. Can I help you show you around the building? And so it's often heard in the hallways. As we know, we need to continue that behavior of welcoming people. So it just is a natural thing for us in our culture.
Yeah. So that, I feel like what you just said might be what both of Lori and Dory, what you guys both just said might be really crucial to seeing it follow through, because I mean, there's a lot of competing demands for and any job. There's just a lot of competing demands. But if you start getting asked about something over and over again, you start to think like, oh, I should probably do that, because you don't want to come back to that. Well, hey, Nate, what did you do about such and such? And if I have nothing to share, that reflects, kind of poorly on me. And so simply, it's what's so funny about it is it's so simple. Like strategically, just ask about it every staff meeting. Just ask about it at these other meetings. Make that part of just that we're asking about it all the time. And it's kind of funny how simple that is, but yet that might literally be, I'm not saying you didn't have other things that worked, but that might be literally like the lever to pull that will make the difference of whether this kind of thing gets ongoing follow through. And then of course it builds momentum, which is what I'm hearing now, that it's happening in the hallways. Like this has become, it gets kind of almost baked into the culture. But to initially get that thing going, I think that may have been very crucial, that you didn't ask once or twice, but you kept asking. And I mean, you collectively, like across the whole org.
Right.
Wow, wow, wow. That must have been a good retirement party. No, but seriously, they shared some amazing stories of how they've been able to really just keep improving the culture bit by bit by bit. And then to hear especially about how that simple thing of asking their staff and their supervisors, how have you been welcoming somebody new lately? And asking that over and over again in lots of different contexts has really made a difference. So I always try to leave you with one action item. Here it is for today. I want you to think about what's one question that you could just embed into all of your supervisions, your staff meetings, that would start to shift your culture in a direction that you want to go. Maybe it's the exact same thing about asking how they've welcomed somebody new lately. Or maybe it's another question, but think about that and see what happens 1 year from now if you start to just build that into all the different touch points that happen. And I guarantee you there will be some significant forward momentum from that simple little change. Now, listen, if your supervisors are sometimes having a little bit of a difficulty when it comes to the aspect of managing people, I've made a resource you might find helpful. It's a free download that goes over 4 simple supervisor habits that really help to retain staff and they boost supervisors' confidence. So you can get that for free at iddleader.com/supervisor. And one other thing, if this episode was a blessing to you, then by all means, pay it forward. Share it with someone, text it or email it to a friend or a colleague, because I'm sure they would love to hear it as well. I am so encouraged by all the things I'm hearing around the nation that are happening in our field. And I just want to say, here's to you. Keep up the amazing work.